Welcome to the News Hour. Today, an escalation in the Trump administration's battle with the judiciary and local authorities over the president's deportation agenda. FBI agents arrested Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan on charges of obstructing immigration agents. When officers attempted to arrest Eduardo Flores Ruiz, a Mexican citizen, last week, the FBI alleges in a criminal complaint that Judge Dugan, quote, escorted Flores Ruiz and his counsel out of the courtroom through the jury door, which leads to a non-public area of the courthouse. Earlier today, Attorney General Pam Bondi addressed both Judge Dugan's arrest and another recent arrest of a former New Mexico judge charged with hiding an alleged Tren de Aragua gang member.
All right, so imagine you're in a courtroom. The tension is already thick. Trump's legal team is up there doing their thing, defending their client, presenting their case, and then something breaks. Someone cracks. One of Trump's own people, someone from his inner circle, starts cooperating with prosecutors. The judge is watching all of this unfold, and you can see the anger building because it's becoming clear that Trump's attorneys haven't just been aggressive in their defense. They've been lying. They've been hiding evidence. They've been obstructing the entire legal process. And then the judge just erupts, stands up, points at one of the attorneys, and says, "You're making a mockery of the legal system. Security, take this person into custody." Right there, in open court. An immediate arrest for contempt and potentially perjury. Can you believe this? This isn't some legal thriller on Netflix. This is real life. This happened on November 8th, 2025, in a federal courtroom, and the fallout from this moment is still rippling through the political and legal world. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
She allowed the undocumented immigrant to exit through a jury door. Agents spotted Flores Ruiz later in a public hallway, and at one point a DEA agent even rode in the elevator with Flores Ruiz and with his attorney, and that's all laid out in the complaint. Ultimately, they apprehended him down the street near the courthouse after he was running away from agents. So today, though, the judge was arrested on 2 charges of obstructing a proceeding of federal agents and concealing an individual to prevent discovery and arrest.
You talked to a former FBI special agent about all of this. What did they have to say on this?
I spoke to former FBI special agent Asha Rangappa, and she believed that both charges could be an uphill battle for the Justice Department in court because it's hard to prove corrupt intent. And she questioned whether the Trump administration was not very focused on the merits of the case and more focused on the signal that it could.
So let's set the scene properly, because this story has so many layers. Trump's legal team has been under pressure for months. Multiple cases, multiple jurisdictions, constant scrutiny, but they've held together, more or less. They've presented a united front. They've stuck to their strategy of delay, deny, attack. But on November 8th, that unity shattered. According to multiple witnesses in the courtroom and legal analysts who've reviewed the proceedings, someone from Trump's defense team reached a cooperation deal with prosecutors. Now, we don't know all the details yet. We don't know exactly who flipped or what they're saying, but the fact that it happened at all, that's huge, because Trump's entire legal strategy depends on everyone staying loyal, everyone keeping quiet, everyone sticking to the same story. When someone breaks ranks and starts cooperating, that whole strategy falls apart, and apparently that's exactly what the judge watched happen in real time. But here's where it gets even crazier. While this cooperation drama is unfolding, the judge is also dealing with Trump's attorneys doing what they've been doing in multiple courts, pushing boundaries, hiding evidence, making claims that don't hold up under scrutiny. And on November 8th, the judge had apparently had enough. According to reports from the courtroom, the judge accused Trump's lawyers of lying under oath, not making mistakes, not being overly zealous in their defense, lying under oath, and hiding documents that were critical to the prosecution's case. These are not minor accusations. Lying under oath is perjury. Hiding evidence is obstruction of justice. These are serious criminal acts that can get lawyers disbarred, fined, or even jailed. And this judge, visibly furious, according to multiple accounts, decided that warnings weren't enough anymore. The judge ordered an immediate arrest. Right there in the courtroom, security rushed in, people started panicking. The whole courtroom descended into chaos. And then, in response to this arrest order, multiple members of Trump's legal team just walked out. They got up, left the courtroom, and refused to continue with the proceedings. Now, walking out of a courtroom When you're counsel of record, that's not something lawyers do lightly. That's potentially abandoning your client. That's potentially violating professional ethics rules. But they did it anyway, because apparently the situation had deteriorated so badly that they decided walking out was better than staying and facing whatever came next. Think about what that means. Trump's lawyers were so concerned about what was happening in that courtroom that they literally abandoned the case rather than stick around. That's not confidence. That's not a strong legal strategy. That's panic. That's people who know the walls are closing in and are trying to get out before they get trapped too. The judge's words are worth repeating because they cut right to the heart of what's happening here. You're making a mockery of the legal system. That's what the judge said. And then the judge added a warning that continued obstruction would result in further criminal sanctions for Trump's counsel. Further criminal sanctions. Not civil penalties, not professional discipline. Criminal sanctions. We're talking about the possibility of Trump's lawyers going to jail for how they've been conducting his defense. And here's the thing that should terrify anyone paying attention. If the lawyers are in this much trouble, if they're facing arrest and criminal charges for their conduct in defending Trump, what does that say about what they've been doing? What does that say about the evidence they've been hiding? What does that say about the lies they've been telling? Because lawyers don't face criminal prosecution for aggressive defense work. They face criminal prosecution when they cross the line into criminal conduct themselves, when they become participants in obstruction rather than just advocates for their client. Political analysts who've been following this case describe the courtroom scene as tense, explosive, and unprecedented. Those three words tell you everything you need to know about how abnormal this situation is. Federal courts are usually pretty calm, pretty controlled. Judges maintain order. Lawyers follow procedure. Even in high-stakes cases, there's a certain decorum that everyone respects. But what happened on November 8th blew past all of that. This was a complete breakdown of normal legal process. This was chaos in a setting that's designed to prevent chaos. And the implications of this breakdown are massive. We're talking about ongoing congressional investigations that could be affected. We're talking about other members of Trump's team who might now decide to cooperate rather than risk facing the same fate. We're talking about a fundamental shift in the legal landscape around Trump. So let's break this down. Let's talk about what actually happened, why someone from Trump's inner circle decided to cooperate, what it means when a judge orders immediate arrest in court, and where this all goes from here. Because this story, this moment, it could be the beginning of the end for Trump's legal defense strategy, and if that defense collapses, everything else collapses with it. Okay, so let's talk about what leads to a moment like this, because federal judges don't just wake up one day and decide to start arresting lawyers in their courtroom. There's a progression. There's a series of events that builds to that kind of explosive confrontation, and understanding that progression helps us see why November 8th was such a critical turning point. Trump's legal team has been playing a specific game for years now. The game is delay, obfuscate, attack, and never ever admit anything. File motions to push back deadlines, challenge every piece of evidence, attack the credibility of prosecutors and witnesses, make the process so exhausting and so expensive that the other side gives up or makes mistakes. And for a long time, that strategy worked pretty well. Cases got dragged out, some charges got dropped, some investigations fizzled. Trump managed to avoid serious legal consequences despite multiple investigations and allegations. But there's a limit to how far you can push that strategy. And it seems like Trump's team finally hit that limit. Here's what we know about the November 8th hearing. The prosecution was presenting evidence. They were building their case, and they needed certain documents, certain testimony, certain pieces of information that should have been turned over during discovery. But those materials weren't there. They'd been withheld, hidden, and when the prosecution pointed this out, when they showed the judge that Trump's team had failed to produce court-ordered documents, that's when things started to go sideways. The judge asked Trump's attorneys to explain why weren't these documents produced? Where are they? What's going on? And according to courtroom accounts, the attorneys' explanations didn't hold up. They contradicted earlier statements. They conflicted with evidence the prosecution had obtained from other sources. The judge, watching this unfold, realized that the attorneys weren't just being difficult, they were actively lying to the court. And that's when the judge exploded. Now let's talk about that cooperation deal, because that's the other huge piece of this story. Someone from Trump's defense team, someone who had inside knowledge of the legal strategy, the evidence, the plans, that person decided to flip, to cooperate with prosecutors, to tell them everything. We don't know yet exactly who this person is. The reports are keeping that information under wraps, probably because the person is now a protected witness, or because there are ongoing negotiations about the scope of their testimony. But we know it happened, and we know it happened right around the time of this explosive court hearing. That timing is probably not a coincidence. When you see lawyers getting arrested in court, when you see the judge threatening criminal sanctions, when you see the whole defense strategy falling apart, that's when people start thinking about saving themselves. That's when loyalty to Trump starts looking less important than staying out of jail. And here's the thing about cooperation deals. Once one person flips, others often follow. Because if you know that someone else is already talking to prosecutors, you know that they're probably giving up information about you too. So your choices become stay loyal and hope for the best, or cut your own deal before the offers run out. It's like a game of musical chairs, except the music is the sound of handcuffs clicking and the chairs are cooperation agreements. And once the music stops, if you're still standing, you're screwed. So the fact that one person from Trump's inner circle has cooperated, that creates pressure on everyone else. Who else knows what? Who else might be next? Who else is talking to prosecutors? That paranoia, that uncertainty, that's corrosive to any defense team. It makes people start looking out for themselves instead of the client. And once that happens, once the united front breaks down, the whole defense can collapse very quickly. Let's talk about attorney-client privilege for a second, because that's going to become a huge issue going forward. Normally, conversations between a lawyer and their client are protected. Prosecutors can't force lawyers to testify about what their clients told them. That privilege is fundamental to the legal system. It allows people to be honest with their lawyers without fear that those admissions will be used against them. But that privilege has limits. If a lawyer is helping their client commit a crime, if the lawyer is actively participating in fraud or obstruction, then the privilege doesn't apply. That's called the crime-fraud exception. And if prosecutors can show that Trump's lawyers weren't just defending him, but were actually helping him hide evidence, destroy documents, or lie to investigators, then all those privileged conversations become fair game. They can be used as evidence. The lawyers can be forced to testify, and everything Trump told his legal team could end up being used against him. That's why the judge's accusations are so significant. By saying that Trump's lawyers lied under oath and hid critical documents, the judge is essentially saying that these lawyers crossed the line from advocacy into criminal conduct. And once they've crossed that line, the privilege protections start to fall away. Prosecutors can pierce that privilege. They can get access to communications that would normally be off limits. They can build cases not just against Trump, but against his lawyers too. And that creates even more pressure for people to cooperate, to flip, to tell prosecutors everything in exchange for leniency. This is a cascade effect. One thing leads to another, which leads to another, and before you know it, the entire defense has imploded. And that's exactly what we're watching happen right now. The walkout by multiple legal team members is also incredibly significant. When lawyers walk out of a courtroom in the middle of a hearing, that's not a strategic decision. That's desperation. That's people who feel like they have no good options left, because walking out creates its own set of problems. You're potentially abandoning your client. You could face sanctions from the court for that. You could face discipline from the state bar. Your professional reputation takes a massive hit. But apparently, staying in that courtroom felt even worse to these lawyers. Maybe they were worried about being arrested themselves. Maybe they were worried about being implicated in whatever the judge was accusing their colleagues of. Maybe they just realized that the whole case was falling apart, and they wanted to distance themselves before they got dragged down with it. Whatever the reason, the optics are terrible. You've got Trump's legal team literally walking out on him in the middle of a critical hearing. That's not the image of a strong defense. That's the image of rats fleeing a sinking ship. And the political implications of all this are enormous. Trump's entire political brand is built on this narrative of being persecuted by a corrupt legal system. He's the victim. The prosecutors are biased. The judges are compromised. It's all a witch hunt. That narrative works as long as Trump can claim he's being treated unfairly, as long as he can say the legal system is out to get him. But when his own lawyers are getting arrested for lying to the court, when his own team members are cooperating with prosecutors, when judges are explicitly saying you're making a mockery of the legal system, that narrative gets a lot harder to sell. Because it's not just prosecutors and judges saying there's a problem. It's people from Trump's own inner circle breaking ranks and confirming that yes, there was misconduct. Yes, there was obstruction. Yes, the accusations are true. For voters who are on the fence, for independents who aren't fully committed to Trump, this kind of legal collapse is damaging. It reinforces the narrative that Trump is corrupt, that his operation is built on lies and obstruction, that he's not someone who should be trusted with power. And even for Trump's base, even for his most loyal supporters, there's got to be some cognitive dissonance happening here. How do you square the image of Trump as a strong leader with the image of his legal team falling apart and walking out of court? How do you maintain that he's innocent when his own people are flipping and cooperating with prosecutors? Some of his supporters will just dismiss all of this as fake news or deep state conspiracy. But others might start having doubts. And in a close election, doubts can matter a lot. Congressional investigations are going to be affected by this too. If Trump's inner circle is cooperating with prosecutors, they might also be willing to cooperate with congressional committees. That means testimony. That means documents. That means insider accounts of what was happening inside Trump's operation. And that gives Congress ammunition for oversight, for investigations, for potential impeachment proceedings. The walls are closing in from multiple directions: criminal prosecutors, civil lawsuits, congressional investigations. And now, with members of Trump's own team cooperating, the defenses against all of those threats are crumbling. All right, let's break this down into the key points so we can really understand what's happening and why it matters. Point 1, the collapse of attorney-client privilege. This is huge, and most people aren't fully grasping how significant it is. Attorney-client privilege is one of the most sacred protections in the American legal system. The idea is that you should be able to tell your lawyer everything, the whole truth, without worrying that those admissions will be used against you in court. That protection allows lawyers to do their job effectively. But when lawyers cross the line from defending their client to helping their client commit crimes, that protection disappears. And that's exactly what the judge accused Trump's lawyers of doing: lying under oath, hiding evidence, obstructing justice. Those aren't defense tactics, those are crimes. And when lawyers commit crimes in the course of representing their client, everything they know, every conversation they had, every document they've seen, all of that can potentially be used as evidence against both the lawyers and the client. So prosecutors might now be able to pierce attorney-client privilege in Trump's cases. They might be able to force his lawyers to testify about conversations that would normally be protected. They might be able to access documents and communications that would normally be off limits. And that changes everything. Because if Trump told his lawyers, yeah, I did hide those documents, or yeah, those financial statements were inflated, or yeah, I knew that was illegal, but I did it anyway, all of those admissions could now become evidence. The lawyers who heard those admissions might be forced to testify about them. And Trump's own words, given in confidence to his legal team, could be used to convict him. That's the nightmare scenario for any defendant. And it's becoming a real possibility here. Point 2. The insider cooperation is creating a domino effect. Once one person from Trump's inner circle decided to cooperate with prosecutors, that put pressure on everyone else. Because now you don't know who else might flip. You don't know what they're saying. You don't know if they're implicating you. And that uncertainty creates paranoia and incentivizes other people to cut their own deals before it's too late. This is basic game theory. If you cooperate first, you get the best deal. You get immunity or reduced charges in exchange for your testimony. But if you wait, if you try to stay loyal and then eventually cooperate anyway, the offers get worse. Prosecutors have less incentive to be generous with later cooperators because they've already got earlier witnesses who can testify to the same things. So there's a race to cooperate, and that race is probably happening right now inside Trump's legal and political operation. People are talking to lawyers, they're weighing their options, they're thinking about their own legal exposure, and some of them are probably reaching out to prosecutors to see what kind of deals they can get. Each person who flips makes it more likely that others will follow. It's a cascade, and once it starts, it's really hard to stop. Trump's inner circle is fracturing. People who used to be loyal are now looking out for themselves. And that fracturing is accelerating because of what happened in that courtroom on November 8th. Point 3. This affects Trump's political viability going forward. Look, Trump's political success has always been built on this image of strength. He's a fighter, he's tough, he doesn't back down, he wins. But what we're watching right now is the opposite of winning. We're watching his legal team fall apart. We're watching his lawyers get arrested in court. We're watching his inner circle cooperate with prosecutors. We're watching people walk out on him. That's not strength, that's weakness, that's failure, that's chaos. And voters, even Trump's supporters, they can see that. Now his hardcore base will stick with him no matter what. They've shown over and over that no scandal, no legal problem, no controversy is enough to shake their support. But his hardcore base isn't enough to win elections. He needs swing voters. He needs independents. He needs people who aren't fully committed to either party. And for those voters, this kind of legal collapse is a problem because it reinforces every negative thing they've ever heard about Trump, that he's corrupt, that he surrounds himself with criminals, that his operation is built on lies, that he can't be trusted. When your own lawyers are getting arrested for lying to protect you, that's hard to spin as persecution. That's hard to claim as a witch hunt. That looks like guilt. And in politics, perception matters a lot. Even if Trump is never convicted of anything, even if he manages to fight off all these legal challenges, the perception that he's guilty, that his operation is criminal, that his defense is collapsing, that perception can be enough to turn voters against him. And we're seeing that perception solidify right now. The polls might not show it immediately, public opinion doesn't shift overnight, but over time, as these stories accumulate, as the legal problems pile up, as more people from his inner circle flip and cooperate, the political damage compounds. So where does this go from here? Well, the immediate question is, what happens with the lawyer who was arrested? Do they face criminal charges? Do they get disbarred? Do they try to cut their own cooperation deal with prosecutors? And what about the other lawyers who walked out? Are they coming back? Or is Trump going to need to find a whole new legal team? Finding competent lawyers willing to represent Trump in high-stakes criminal cases is already difficult because of his reputation for not listening to advice and not paying bills. But now, with lawyers getting arrested for their work on his cases, it's going to be even harder to recruit new counsel. Who wants to take that risk? Who wants to potentially end up in handcuffs because their client insisted on a defense strategy that crossed legal lines? The bigger question is what the insider cooperation reveals. What does this person know? What are they telling prosecutors? Is it enough to bring new charges? Is it enough to secure convictions in existing cases? We don't know yet, but the fact that prosecutors thought it was worth offering a cooperation deal suggests they believe this person has valuable information. And if that information leads to more charges, more arrests, more legal problems for Trump and his associates, we could be looking at a legal avalanche. One charge leads to another. One conviction leads to more cooperation deals. More cooperation leads to more evidence. And suddenly, the whole edifice comes crashing down. We're not there yet, but we might be heading in that direction. And the events of November 8th might be the moment historians look back on as the beginning of the end. The judge's statement, "You're making a mockery of the legal system," that's going to echo for a long time because it captures something fundamental about what's been happening. Trump's legal strategy has been to treat the courts as just another political arena, attack judges, ignore orders when convenient, file frivolous motions, delay everything, turn the legal process into a circus. And for a while, that worked, but judges have limits to their patience. And when those limits are reached, when judges decide that enough is enough, they have real power to impose consequences, contempt charges, arrest warrants, criminal sanctions. These aren't empty threats. These are tools that judges can and will use when they feel the integrity of their courtroom is being compromised. So what we're watching is the legal system fighting back against an attempt to undermine it. And right now, in this moment, the system appears to be winning. Trump's lawyers are facing arrest. His inner circle is cooperating. His defense is collapsing. That doesn't mean Trump will definitely be convicted, or that he'll face prison time, or that his political career is over. But it does mean that his strategy of attacking and defying the legal system has consequences, real consequences that are landing right now. And those consequences are going to shape everything that comes next, every future case, every appeal, every political campaign. This is a turning point, and we're watching it happen in real time. More on this as it develops. Because if one insider has already cooperated, others will probably follow. If one lawyer has been arrested, others might be next. This story is far from over. In fact, it's probably just getting started. And what happens in the next few weeks and months could determine not just Trump's legal fate, but the fate of everyone in his orbit who participated in or enabled the conduct that's now coming to light. So yeah, stay tuned. This is going to get even more intense.